we had an increase in capital, 15% of our shares. And the amount we asked was 400 million drachmas, 1.2 million euros. If you multiply that by 7, it was a capitalization of 8 million euros, in other words. Who was smart enough or optimistic enough and bought shares back then, now he can see that that investment was quite profitable. This is a British understatement. So thank you all for being here in the ordinary general meeting, which is an important appointment to us. It's a totally different ordinary general meeting. As you know, we have pressed the button and started the procedure to become primary listed in London Stock Exchange and remain in Athens in secondary listing. For me, it's a rather moving time. As I said, it's been 30 years since our listing in the stock exchange. And it was back then we started this unique relation with our shareholders. They have always been a cornerstone of the development of this company. A mutual trust relationship which never vanished, even in the most difficult of times. Our shareholders supported us in every difficulty all those past years. And all these years were all but calm. We faced crises, international, Greek ones. There were a lot of ups and downs, but our shareholders were always there to support us and believed in our effort to have an open company, a dynamic company that takes rational risks and returns value to the shareholders above all. So thank you all for that from the bottom of my heart. Of course, this relationship in this new chapter for the company won't change at all. Even though some things might change, of course we will have a discussion on those things later, as you know. And I want to underline that there is a framework today on what we can say and what we cannot. I am sure, nonetheless, that you, shareholders, will do what you have to do in the framework of this transition to open this new chapter together. And we aim to be a bigger chapter for the company. It's quite interesting to think that a 30-year circle closes and we open a new circle of new 30 years, but in London this time. Of course, I cannot imagine how things will be in 30 years from now, but And I cannot even think that we will have the same success as the previous 30 years, because if it will be equally successful, we will become bigger than ExxonMobil. But it's quite interesting that we close this circle and we open a new one. Some of these things that we have mentioned in London gave you a picture of what we intend to do since we presented our business plans for the next 30 years. Our goal was mentioned back then to be in the mid-term in 1.9 to 2.8 billion euros in EBITDA and the respective net profit based on our organic growth. There is no specific time limit within which we expect to achieve this goal. We cannot be that precise, as I said in London. Medium term, okay, you know what I mean. And our ambition, this ambition of ours, concerns exclusively the organic growth of the company without taking into consideration any mergers or buyouts, which, as I said earlier, can have an important impact on the figures mentioned in London. We operate in a rather liquid, in a rather volatile environment. The different aspects may influence us, but in the mid-term, we will be able to achieve these goals. As you know, what we usually say, we achieve, we deliver. This is our principle. No one obliges us to say something. Our shareholders are pleased with the course of the company. We don't need to say a lot, but whenever we say something, out of experience, we see that we do it. I am sure that we will have you by our side in the future as well. These are two comments that have to do with the present circumstances, circumstances that we will analyze later, and we can have a discussion on all these topics later. I'm quite patient, and I am always willing to answer questions by the shareholders. So the session of the ordinary general meeting of the company begins following the invitation of the company's board of directors dated April 23, 2025. To facilitate the process, discussion and answers to questions will follow at the end of the voting. I have the honor to take the floor as the President of the General Meeting designated by the Article of Association and the law in my capacity as Chairman of the Board of Directors. In order for the General Meeting to become constituted as a body and proceed with the discussion of each item on the agenda, I propose the election of a provisional presidium to verify the compliance with publicity formalities and the preconditions for the convening and constitution of the meeting, as well as to confirm the presence of the required quorum in accordance with the law and the Articles of Association. In addition to myself, as a provisional chairman in accordance with the Articles of Association, I propose Mr. Nikolaos Mouzas as provisional secretary. Do you approve? Thank you. So, interim president myself and Mr. Mouzas, interim secretary. I would like to ask the secretary to check and announce the publications and the observance of preliminary procedure, and to inform the shareholders meeting of the formation of the required quorum according to the law. Thank you, President. I hereby confirm to you that the notice of today's general meeting was published on May 6, 2025, and on the company's website, and was also registered and posted on the company's section of the General Commercial Register on May 7, 2027. Therefore, the invitation was publicized legally and in due time in accordance with the relevant provisions of Article 122 as applicable. The preliminary procedure was followed and no request or application was submitted by shareholders of the company pursuant to Article 141 for addition of additional items to the agenda. It is also mentioned that the information of Article 123, paragraph 3 and 4, including the invitation, the form for the appointment of representatives and draft resolutions on the agenda items are already available in e-form at the company's website. Only natural or legal persons who have the right to participate and vote at the general meeting are entitled to participate and vote at this general meeting only if they are shareholders at the beginning of the fifth day preceding the meeting. 29th of May 2025, proof of shareholding status shall be provided by any legal means and in any case on the basis of information received electronically by the company. I also informed the shareholders that up to 24 hours before the beginning of the meeting, the company was notified of the appointment of proxies by the company's shareholders in accordance with Article 128. Also, in accordance with the instruction of the invitation, the eligible shareholders who wish to participate in the general meeting remotely submitted the required declaration of participation in the general meeting remotely, and all those eligible shareholders who wish to vote on the items on the agenda before the general meeting did so by sending the relevant voting form up to 24 hours. President, please inform us of if there is a quorum. For all items of the agenda, a quorum is present and the meeting is valid if shareholders represent 1/5, 20% of the paid-up capital are present or represented at the meeting, and decisions on these items are taken by an absolute majority. So I hereby inform that the quorum is required. So we have represented or participated remotely or voted by correspondence by shareholders holding at least 139,853,019 we have 63.18 shares, that is 88,365,000 vote writing shares. So the total concern everybody. These 3,037,247 treasury shares of the company out of the total of 142 million, etc. shares that make up the share capital are not counted for the purposes of quorum or voting. I therefore propose to the General Assembly, to the General Meeting, to elect the same Bureau as final, namely as final President and final Secretary, Mr. Evangelos Mytilineos and Nikolaos Mouzas, respectively. Approved. I ask the Secretary to refer to any shareholders who have not complied in due time with the provisions of Article 124 and 128 of Law 4548 of 2018 in order for them to participate in the General Meeting in accordance with Article 124, Paragraph 5 of Law 4548 of 2018, provided that the General Meeting does not refuse their participation for good cause. I inform that General Meeting that the shareholders are only 7, representing only 0.99% of the share capital. So I propose there is no reason to refuse their participation. Following that, Secretary announce the results of the pre-trial hearing. I hereby inform that the following an audit so we have a 63.18% voting shares are present, so we have the quorum necessary according to the law. I note that Mrs. Eleftheria Kontogianni, shareholders representative, has already notified pursuant to Article 120, Paragraph 5 of Law 4548 that she is a senior executive of the company and has received explicit and specific voting instructions. I also note that in accordance with Article 16, Paragraph 2 of the law, the Director of Informal Audit of the company has been invited to attend the meeting. Therefore, in accordance with the law and the company's Articles of Association, the General Meeting may take decisions on all the items on the agenda. Following the above, the discussion of the items on the agenda as listed in the invitation on which the present General Assembly may take decision begins, and which are as follows. Item 1. Submission and approval of the annual and consolidated financial statements for the financial year of the 1st January 2024 until 31st of December 2024 of the relevant Board of Directors and Statutory Auditors report of the statements of corporate governance and of the sustainability report. Secretary. The annual financial statements, as approved by the Board of Directors of the company on March 12, 2025, have been duly made available to you and are in your hands and have been duly posted on the company's website and on the website of the Athens Stock Exchange, which will be published in the General Register of Companies pursuant to Article 149. You also have the report of the Board of Directors of the companies on the annual financial statements as of 31st December 2024 to the annual general meeting of shareholders as recorded in the minutes of the Board of Directors of the company dated 12th March 2025 and the report of the auditor of the company dated 12th of March 2025, the explanatory report pursuant Article 3556, the corporate governance statement in accordance with the relevant provision of Article Articles 152 and 152 of Law 4548 on essays, and the sustainability report. I recommend the approval of the annual financial statements and consolidated annual financial statements for the fiscal year from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, the related report of the Board of Directors and the auditor, as well as the corporate governance statement and sustainability report. So let's ask the approval of the reports, of the statements. Yes, they are approved. As President, I announce that the General Assembly has voted in favor of this item in accordance with the provisions of Article 133, Paragraph 1 of Law 4548. Item 2, approval of the appropriation of the results for the financial year of 1st January 2024 to 31st December 2024, distribution of dividend established of general reserve accounts and payment of fees from the profits of the aforementioned accounting period. Dear shareholders, according to the draft resolution, it is proposed to distribute a dividend to the shareholders of the company in the amount of €1.50 per share. Since treasury shares do not receive a dividend, the final amount of the dividend to be paid per share will be increased, taking into account the amount of the dividend corresponding to the treasury shares held by the company on the cut-off date and based on the current treasury share data. In accordance with the applicable tax provision, the dividend to be distributed is subject to withholding tax of 5%, with the exemption of differentiation of the withholding rate for shareholders who are subject to special provisions. And after that, the dividend payable per share will ultimately amount to €1.40 and 25 cents. As announced by the company in the financial calendar 2025, the proposed cut-off date is the 26th of June 2025. The proposed date for the determination of beneficiaries is 26th June 2025, and the dividend payment process to shareholders will commence on the 2nd of July 2025. Finally, it is proposed to grant the Board of Directors the authority to regulate all procedural matters for the implementation of the resolutions. So, the 2nd of July, we will have the payment of dividends. So, continuing, we also propose the amount of €58,171,590.11 and a special tax deductible reserve in accordance with Articles 48 of the law at €11,644.50 and the special taxable reserve of law number 4887 and other developments of law in the amount of €2,675,758, and on the other hand, the granting to the members of the Board of Directors and eligible personnel of the company of remuneration from the remaining balance of the net profits made in the financial year 2024 after deduction of the amount required for the distribution of the first dividend in accordance with the specific provision of the law up to the total amount of €8,804,001. So please approve the following results. Are the dividends approved? And the results. As President, I announce that the General Meeting has voted in favor of this issue in accordance with the provision of Article 133, Paragraph 1 of Law 4548. Item 3, discussion and vote on the remuneration report under Article 112 of Law 4548, 2018 for the year 2024. This is an advisory vote. Secretary, I refer to the draft resolution already posted and the unanimous proposal of the Board of Directors following the recommendation and proposal of the company's Remuneration and Nomination Committee, which is composed exclusively of independent non-executive directors, to the Board of Directors to submit to the General Meeting for discussion and vote the remuneration report under Article 112 for the financial year 2024. The remuneration report submitted for discussion and advisory vote was brought to the attention of the shareholder and is available to the company's website. The remuneration report concerns the remuneration of the executive and non-executive members of the company's board of directors in the year 2024 and contains the information required by Article 112 of Law 4548, including a reference to the manner in which the result of the vote of the general meeting of the shareholders on the remuneration report for the financial year 2024 was taken into account. The report has been prepared based on the assumptions contained in the remuneration policy approved by the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders of the companies held on April 2023 with a 4-year term of validity. Do we have the approval of the shareholders? Yes, we do, and thank you for that. The report was put to an advisory vote, and in accordance with Article 112 of the law 4548, the above result will be taken into account by the Board of Directors as will be presented in the next report. Item 4, approval of the amendment of the Board remuneration policy approved by the extraordinary meeting of shareholders of April 10, 2023. Secretary, dear shareholders, I refer to the draft resolution already posted and the unanimous proposals of the Board of Directors following the recommendation and proposal of the company's Remuneration and Nomination Committee, which is composed solely of independent non-executive directors, to the Board of Directors that amendments to the company's current remuneration policy be brought to the attention of the General Meeting for approval. The remuneration policy was approved by the extraordinary General Meeting with 4-year term of validity and applies to the remuneration of all members of the Board of Directors, executive and non-executive, in accordance with the specific provisions of Article 110 and 111 of Law 4548. The full text is already uploaded and to the website of the company. It is also proposed that the company's board of directors be authorized to manage the remuneration policy, always in accordance with the relevant recommendations of the company's remuneration and nomination of committee. Do you approve? Yes. As president, I announce that the general meeting has voted in favor of this issue in accordance with the provisions of Article 133. Item 5, annual report from the chairman of the audit committee on the activities of the audit committee for the year 2024. This item is not put to vote. I refer to the Audit Committee's annual report of operation for fiscal year 2024, which was issued with the company's annual financial report, forming a discrete part of its content, and was brought to the attention of the shareholder and is available on the company's website. Mr. Bartzokas is here president in the general meeting. So there is no voting, so we can proceed with item number 6.
Report number 6. From the lead independent director on the activities of the independent non-executive directors of the board for the period 24 May 2nd until April 23rd, 2025, according to Article 9, Paragraph 5 of Law 4706/2020. So, the lead independent director is undertaken as of July 20th, Mr. Yannis Petridis. Mr. Petridis. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. I refer to the report of the independent non-executive directors to this annual general meeting of shareholders, which has been brought to the attention of shareholders and is available on the company's website. The goal of this presentation is to put forward the role and the picture of independent non-executive directors and to stress that out of the 13 members, 8 of them are independent, and how this body has supported the operations of the BOD and Metlen by and large in the past 12 months. The practice we have adopted as of 2020 to convene periodically as non-executive directors without executive directors present is a supervisory and assessment procedure tool and operates as a mechanism which supervises the management of the company. This body, which is coordinated by the leading director, supports the chairman to have an external and independent picture concerning the operation of the company by proposing to the BOD topics for discussion that highlight the non-executive members in and discusses corporate governance and is part of the discussion with the due diligence share. While being in line with the Greek legislation in this framework, our meetings in 24 focused on supporting a number of strategies in order to have a more effective operation of the BOD and the group as a whole. I would like to put forward some examples of those discussions and of our actions. First, assessment, evaluation of the effectiveness of the BOD and of its committees, and adoption of actions relevant to governance. Second, evaluation of the chairman and CEO itself by covering all fields under his capacity. Discussion on strategies relevant to regulatory compliance, human resources, IT, capital markets, and internal audit issues. Between the members, we've got experts on those topics, and our goal is that those good practices be highlighted further on in Metlen. Fourth, continuous updating of a program of succession for the leading positions of the group and strengthening of its organizational structure. Fifth, evaluation of the compliance of the corporate governance during 24 in line with the British Code for Corporate Governance. And last but not least, specialized cyber security further training according to the relevant directive. Now, in 25, as you know, this will be a unique year for Metlen, as you know. We are heading to get listed in the London stock market, where we have the 100 more important European companies. This movement is a result of the impressive course of the company in the last 10 years. And particularly in the past 7 years, when we had the first transition in 18 of the company, when the financial volumes of the company skyrocketed. Indicatively, in the last 7 years, the turnover from 1.5 billion skyrocketed to 6 billion, fourfold higher, and the profitability, EBITDA, from 290 million to more than 1 billion in 24. There again, we have 4 times higher of profitability. it is clear that we have a unique business model which allows us to have a competitive edge, despite the fact that our productive basis is in Greece, with all those adverse winds that this might involve due to lack of infrastructure, high energy costs, complex regulatory and legal framework. However, the most important factor of our success is relevant and still is the vision and the leading capacities of a person, of Evangelos Mytilineos. And I don't refer so to praise him. I say so because it is strictly connected with the role of the BOD and particularly of the independent members. I believe that our main priority as BOD is to ensure that there are in place the mechanisms, the incentives that ensure that Evangelos Mytilineos will continue leading the company in the next years. Bearing that in mind, we updated the remuneration policy relevant to the president with the support with Confer International, which is a specialized company in remunerations. And as you know, this policy was brought to vote today, and it is a very special framework, innovative framework, according to which in the next 5 years the President and CEO shall have zero salary, second, shall not have an annual bonus scheme, and the only remuneration in place after the third year shall be connected with the increase of the capitalization of the company in the next 3-5 years. Given that in cumulative basis in the next 3-5 years the increase of capitalization is at least 2% per year, well, if we add up 2% a year and the return of the dividend, which is 4%, taking into account 1.5%, as mentioned earlier, annually, we are speaking about a return to the shareholders of still 6% per year for the next 5 years, simply to open the gate and allow the president to get share of the capitalization. Now, this new remuneration mechanism for the president adds up another incentive for Mr. Mytilineos to continue leading the company in the next years, in line fully with the interests of the shareholders, and evidently it is connected with the increase of capitalization. This body of independent consultants of the BOD is particularly proud in relation to the course of metal in the past years. The role of the members of BOD is to continue supporting the leading team and ensure the compliance of METLEM with the best practices of corporate governance, which is extremely important, as you may understand, and relevant to our course in the stock market of London. To conclude, I would like to thank you all for supporting METLEN. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Petridis. For a number of years, he's been working with high responsibility, filling in this leading position, which becomes even more important nowadays in view of the fact that in the company there's a dual role of the president and the CEO. In those cases, BODs, well, in BODs, the leader independent consultant is extremely important, particularly for the shareholders. And this is the role he's been playing in the best possible way. And of course, all others non-executive members of the BOD. And I would like to thank him publicly all for their contribution. We are one of the few companies in Greece that has such a number of independent and non-executive members in the BOD and of distinguished quality. Item 7, approval of the overall management for the financial year January 24, December 24, and discharge of the statutory auditors for the same financial year. Secretary, on this topic, I propose the approval of the overall management that took place during the fiscal year 24 in accordance with Article 108 of Law 4548 and the discharge of the company editors from any liability as stated in the posted draft resolution. Adopted? Adopted. Item number 8, election of regular and alternative statutory auditors for the audit of the financial statements for the current fiscal year as per IAS and the annual sustainability report and determination of the fees. I recommend, upon the unanimous recommendation of the members of BOD, having taken into consideration the recommendation and proposal of the Audit Committee of the BOD, that the regular audit of the individual and consolidated financial statements, including the assurance of the annual viability report of the company for the current fiscal year, and the review of the interim financial information for the fiscal year January 25th until June 25th to be assigned to the firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers, located in Halandri and registered in the Special Register Code, and determination of its fees according to the particulars mentioned in the already published draft resolutions. Please, Secretary, refer to the draft decision as published. Dear shareholders, according to this draft, on the topic referred by the President, the proposal of the company regarding the fee of PricewaterhouseCoopers is to be an annual up until $1,160,000 plus VAT and expense in accordance with the audit companies offered to the company. For the tax audit of the company for the fiscal year 25, the fee of the above audit amounts to $240,000 plus VAT. Adopted. The fee of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Adopted. A note at this point. I would like to thank Grant Norton, the outgoing company, our auditors, for a number of years, with which we've been having an excellent cooperation all those years, as concluded on the basis of the facts themselves. And hopefully we'll have a similar excellent relation with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Item number 9, approval of share capital increase through capitalization of reserves and issues of 217,000 new common registered voting shares for the purpose of free distribution to the beneficiaries of the long-term program for free distribution of shares of the company, as approved by the annual general meeting June 21 and amended by the annual general meeting of shareholders June 24, in accordance with the provisions of Article 114 of Law 4540A. Subsequent amendment of Article 5 of the Company's Articles of Association. Secretary, please, you have the floor on this topic. I refer to this topic that is in detail on the report already posted for the approval of the increase of share capital in the amount of €210,490 with capitalization of an annual portion of distribution reverts by issuing 217,000 new ordinary registered shares of the company with voting rights of €0.95 each. The new shares will be issued for this purpose to the beneficiaries of the long-term free share allocation plan approved by the annual general meeting June 21, as amended by the annual general meetings June 24, in accordance with the provisions of Article 114, Law 4548. After the aforementioned increase, the share capital of the company will amount to €138,814,916 of the dividend into 143,148,161 registered shares with a nominal value of 97 cents each, as amended by Article 4. Finally, it is proposed to the BOD to take all the necessary steps for the implementation of the present resolution of such increase. Is it adopted? Adopted. Number 10, approval of the establishment of a special reserve account using tax earnings for the purpose of covering the corporate's non-participation in the framework of submission of company's investment plans to developmental laws and investment incentives programs. Secretary, you have the floor. Dear shareholders, referring to the drafted resolution as posted, and in particular, the company examines investments that may be undertaken and which may be subjected to aid schemes under development laws and or any kind of national or European investment aid programs. The BOD recommends the creation of a special reserve account for an amount up to €20 million using taxable profits. It is also proposed that the BOD is authorized at its discretion to decide the exact amount to be allocated to cover the required equity participation in the company's investment projects, which are subject to national development laws or European investment programs in force at the date of submission and or approval of the relevant application and or inaction schemes and any kind of national or European investment aid programs. President, do we have the approval of the general meeting? Thank you. Item 11, pre-approval of remuneration of members of the BOD for the financial year January 25, December 25, in accordance to Article 109. I recommend, upon the unanimous proposal of the members of the BOD, the pre-approval of the payment of remuneration of the members of BOD for the current fiscal year 25 up to the gross total amount of €2 million in accordance with Article 109 of Law 4548/2018 as amended and approved, and the approved remuneration policy of the members of the Board of Directors. And I ask your approval. Thank you. Well, I declare the meeting adjourned, and I would ask the Secretary to take the minutes and make the relevant announcement. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the shareholders for the approval of all items, and I would like to say a few words on the course of the company. Despite the fact that 5 weeks ago we had the opportunity in London to deliver a full analysis, it lasted approximately 4 hours. I was one of the few that stayed up until the end of this meeting. I couldn't, of course, leave even if I wanted. Okay, so in all reports that I go through in weekends, on weekends, reading, going through different surveys and polls concerning the main concerns of CEOs of large companies, almost in all those reports, the first answer, well, there's always some kind of prioritization. The first answer being the geopolitical environment. So relevant to the geopolitical environment, which is the leading factor generating the major concerns in CEOs of large company. Yesterday, I got through a report, a survey, a study, and I was wondering, where the hell are we heading? So the question was, what CEOs do to protect their employees in case of war, if there's a war. In the UK, the issue of rivalry, how to put it, between West and Russia plays a far more important role as opposed to Greece. In Greece, we are discussing Olympiakos, Panathinaikos, this is not the case in the UK. Most front pages focus on those geopolitical topics. And I was wondering, what can I do to protect my employees against an eventual war? Anyway, in Volos, we are having some defense industries. Who knows? Well, I don't know what to say. Well, this is a serious topic, and it demonstrates the extent, the depth of the global business environment compared to and benchmarked against the geopolitical situation. Now, as for the rest, all of those that we have discussed in London, 28th of June, everything is valid and in force. The well develops and progresses as it should. Nothing to add to what I've mentioned in London, and I'm at your disposal to discuss whatever issue on the company or the overall situation here in Greece or elsewhere. What we need to be expecting for the next period. There I am. The floor is open. Good afternoon. Nikos Athanasoulios. Two questions. The first one, relevant to the energy prices and the cause of profitability of renewables in particular. To what extent you believe that profitability shall be affected, photovoltaics particularly, due to the low prices in the midday, and batteries, will they help in the first years, or we might be over-optimistic? Second question concerning something that you have announced recently of cycle metals, to what extent there might be a competitor due to the high margins you have announced. Thank you for both questions. I'm pleased when I have questions that are juicy, interesting meaning. So, the zero prices that oftentimes appear, particularly during spring and autumn, are of the major concerns and challenges in the energy market for different reasons, for various reasons. One of those being the overloading of grids due to the overproduction from photovoltaics, with outcomes such as those in Spain occurring on the 27th of April. That was on the day in London. I was told later, which was just a symptom. However, you can see how such an impact may diffuse. 5 weeks later, in Spain, they were trying to come to conclusions, which isn't the case yet. My focus, our risk focus, is that that was an abrupt, sudden overloading, super overloading of the grid for tenths of seconds, which destabilized the grid and expanded very rapidly, milling in seconds, not moments, seconds. As a result, in a very short time period, we had the well-known outcome, the well-known impact. What Spanish people failed to do, and I tried to be as simple as possible in answering the question so that I'm well understood. What Spanish people didn't do, the operator overloaded, let rather, all renewables to be operable on a very favorable day, and somehow let all plants working with natural gas drop to zero production, zero generation, which essentially bring a balance to the grid. Why? Because they do not depend on variations of a second as the one that occurred, or moments of overloading, because they have a continuous, steady production until you push a button and you cut it off, you close it. Thus, they keep a balance on the grid, one way or another. So, we discussed that in the last meeting, and I did a focus at that time back that things would become worse year by year, over the years, and unfortunately, a year later, well, it appears that I was right. Why? Because of the zero or negative values prices, and because of the operators' cuts of alternatives, alternative resources, that is. What I focused now, that might happen inevitably, I would say, taking into account that they are still getting in many photovoltaics. We had 7-8 hours of zero prices on Sunday. well, the situation shall continue deteriorating. For example, during Easter, ADMIE, the Ministry of Energy, they were all in red alert to avoid having a phenomenon of overloading, of overproduction from photovoltaics and minimization of demand due to Easter. And the minister, the poor minister, on that very day of Easter, went just to the island of Spetses because he was still scared of something might happen next day, a blackout or something. That isn't a joke. So, the financial impact of such an occurrence, of such an event. The most important factor currently in the energy system, as opposed to what happened, what was the case for decades, the most important factor was relevant to offer, meaning you had in Greece PPC, which was a state by itself. Why? Because it was holding in her hands the entire offer. With whatever this might mean. EDF in France, Enel in Italy, and different other companies in different European countries. As it was foreseen, and we internally have foreseen for a decade approximately, Yanis de Tsipris stressed that for the first time and insisted on that. Gradually, step by step, the demand started to play a most important role, the most important role. Currently, the one holding the keys of energy in its hands is the one connected with demand. The offer, okay, but there is offer, plenty of offer, as much as you want. The demand is that matters above all. We have identified this challenge at a very early point, and we have been dealing with that in two ways. The first one, by having the management of the energy needs of aluminium, which by itself consumes more than Patras City alone. Thus, we've got in our hands the largest part of demand. Second, our enormous effort to reach the retail, our retail pocket up to 30% share. 3 years ago, I've said the following. Most people were not aware of the developments, and they thought I would say 30% because I'm arrogant or whatever. No, that wasn't the case. I knew that such 30% would give us the critical volume of demand that would add up to aluminium, and thus I would have a critical mass of demand under control, which would allow me to work both my gas plants and particularly my photovoltaics, and exploit the zero prices. Do you know what we do when we come up with zero prices? It's unbelievable. You won't believe it. We close our photovoltaics. We shut them down. We shut them down. We are not expecting the operator, and you know why? to come to a zero value of operational expenses and get zero price from the grid. What that would mean? 10 megawatt hour operational costs. Which is best instead of getting zero from the grid? This is the case. However, under normal conditions, PVCs and our renewables by and large serve our demand. This is 80% of the hours. And this is why we depend on demand, as I mentioned earlier. And this is why most suppliers suffer, because they do not hold the demand, those having a large bucket of retail. PPC has a far larger pocket and wallet of the retail. Thus, it can exploit fully the zero price of the grid. Be short of energy, of course, involves other challenges, because if there's lots of sun as last year with a high price and you are short in energy, when this is not a happy situation. I don't know whether I have answered your question. You asked again on cycled metals. Cycled metals. This is a total of several patents that are based on proprietary knowledge of our company from our R&D. And we are not afraid that someone might take it out of our hands. All our patents are submitted. Our only issue is relevant to the following: how fast we may optimize, finalize the industrial procedure. As I said in London, it started with a pilot plant in Thessaloniki. It progresses in an excellent way now, step by step. We need to consider, as I mentioned in London, this is very important to have those 2 points connected. Please forgive me when I repeat myself, and I always refer to London. So this is the important point, the execution, the industrial execution. We want it to go well and go fast. Provided that this happens, well, our optimism will come true. Thank you. Please. Good afternoon. Karanikas Vangelis from Ethniki Χρηματιστηριακή. 2 questions. The first one relevant to the pioneering idea of remunerations of the BOD. Could you explain further on the rationale relevant to the €1 of your personal remuneration for the next years? Could you please comment on that? And second question, all analysts speak about the listing in the stock market of London as an extraordinary opportunity for the share, for the company. Could you please explain and how you're expecting the prospects of the British market? Could I elaborate on the remuneration policy? Well, of course, but this is a personal matter, so I'll add later on. So, the president's remuneration is a topic of discussion for the past 6 months with our consultants, with the president himself. As I mentioned, personally and for the BOD, the most important capacity of and competency of the BOD is to ensure that Mr. Mytilineos continues being the leader of the company for many, many years in the future. This is why we wanted to put up a framework of remuneration that would give him the incentive for the years to come. We're speaking about a 5-year scheme, in line with the interests of the shareholders, of course. The capitalization, increase of capitalization, and so forth. After different tests delivered with the consultants, we came up with a scheme which is a pioneering one. Most similar schemes exist in the US, not in Europe. So, this is the policy which provides a large incentive to the president for larger capitalization, because the vision of Mr. Mytilineos, it's not a vision of a year or two, it's a very long-term vision. In the past 30 years, we've been already 30 years in the stock market. Our position today is the outcome of a long-term vision, the one our president had 30 years ago, and he did deliver it. Under the same rationale, we came up with this policy, which awards the president for an increase of capitalization in line fully, of course, meaning the incentive for the president with the interests of shareholders. This is how we would sum up our remuneration policy. Thank you. Thank you. You have already explained the rationale behind the resolution. There's something which is far more emotional, I would say, I dare say. After several decades with this hat, being praised, becoming famous, thank God for different good reasons, I consider that it was correct to leave this chair and sit somewhere else together with you. And earn and gain together with you. What you get, I'll be getting. And if somehow the company has a mediocre progress and you do not gain, I'll be working for free. That was the rationale. I've seen a lot of things during my career, and I'm still hoping that I'll see more. But I can't distinguish myself and allow me getting a salary full of zeros from $1 billion company by distinguishing myself from our shareholders. I can't do it. This cycle is over. There's a new one ahead, and my place is next to you. You'll be earning, I'll be earning. It's as simple as that.
And let me answer. Well, there were two questions for Mr. Karanikas and then the gentleman in the middle. The second question of Mr. Karanika concerns overrating in LSE and if the share in LSE will increase or not. Those who think that we sought to make this transition to see our share going up has not understood the meaning of our real intention. Greece soon will become a developed market as the UK, and there is a chance we might have a lot of capital pouring in from the United States in Europe and Greece, depending on geopolitical developments. I want to share the following with you. If you knew from the point we declared our intention to be listed in LSE and various companies started talking about that and the whole story became quite popular in the foreign media. You don't know the appeal to the markets, not capital markets necessarily, the real market, real economy markets, how differently they deal with us. They make our life easier to do jobs, and we are still not listed. Imagine to become. We will have one proposal after the other. We will be the choosers. Until now, we were the beggars, either successfully or unsuccessfully. But we were there to knock on doors. We were the small, medium, and then large company. Now we are a multinational will be listed in London, and hopefully we will be the ones to be chosen by Fuji to become part of the big index. It's not if we want to, but if we will be chosen to. There are certain criteria. It's not I want to go and that will be it. It is if I am chosen. Well, the requirements are not tremendous. I want to be listed in Fuji. Okay, but if I don't meet the requirements, I cannot be listed. We will be in screens like these screens all over the world. I already tell you, we see that and we enjoy it, the acceptance. That is why I said earlier that the new circle is about to start, because this kind of things will happen. One might suggest a buyout, another one might suggest a cooperation in Latin America, a third might come to ask for financing as an idea. Others will come to find a job. We will have a lot of people coming in. This is our optimism for the future. The question of shares it has some objective factors to influence it. In Greece, for example, passive funds, as they are called, I don't know what is the Greek terminology, but we do passive funds, as you can understand, have 7% of Fuji 25 index, the bigger index in Greece. In Fuji 100, they have 23%. What does that mean? It means that if everything goes well and be listed in Fuji 100, 16% more shareholders will necessarily have Metlen in their portfolio. And that is the case. MSCI in Greece has a limit of 2 billion, I remember. It might have increased by now in developed markets like the UK. The threshold to be in MSCI is 6 billion, but the money invested based on the options of MSCI are multiple folds of the developing markets. Well, these are funds, and how they will be translated in the price of the shares, I cannot make any forecast. I avoid doing so. Thank you very much. The two gentlemen. A few words about the interaction of the price of the share in London and in Greece. Well, that is what I said earlier. That is what I just said. That was already answered. I avoid making any forecasts. There are some facts that cannot happen. The result of these events for the course of the market, on the course of the market, well, if we were forecasters that can predict everything wouldn't be here today. I would be on an island enjoying my holidays. Well, we are here to fight for the good of the company. The changes in the shares I cannot comment on because I'm not aware of those. So I'm not an oracle. Zavaras, I think that you know me. I wanted to say a few things to the benefit of the shareholders. And when I say all shareholders, I talk about the increase of price, which will satisfy everybody and you personally because of the capitalization, and I would like to allow me to analyze the study I have carried out on this topic. This is number one. Number two, Mr. President, is you are well aware how I appreciate and respect you, and I love you. But there is an injustice which you are not aware of. And I invite you and I plea to correct this injustice. I have already sent you a letter in your name day. In this letter, I analyzed this injustice, and it's impossible for you to be aware of that without correcting it. Well, you haven't received that letter. That is why I have brought it and give it to you, hand it to you. It's personally for you, this letter, to read. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Private discussions off the mic. Well, thank you very much for sharing these documents with me. The gentleman here. Samaras Christos, I wanted to ask you two things. The first concern our listing with LSE. I understand the reasons why you want to be listed there. Does that forecast a capital increase in the future? The seat of the company will be transferred there. Won't we have the seat of the company in Greece any longer? I understand that the profits will be capital profits from the increase of the share. But the shareholders will be taxed with the taxation regime of the UK, not the local. With the spin-offs, Medcar will be listed in the stock exchange. Have you got any other plans for parts of the company to be listed here as well? I would like you to comment on the following. We see that in Europe in general, there is a turn towards nuclear energy. In our region, we have the Bulgarians have nuclear factories, the Turks have nuclear factories. Do you see any factories being built in Greece? And the raw material that you will process in metals will be industrial remains, recycled devices. What is the raw material you are going to use? And besides gallium and other metals, I presume that you need to invest in other rare metals. Is that so? Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. Okay, you remember all these questions by heart. Quite remarkable. Well, they were all of them to the point. Probably other shareholders would love to listen to answers. The transition to LSE has nothing to do with capital increase. We won't have that in our plans to have a capital increase. That is, the liquidity of the market, of the company, is quite sufficient and covers our investment program for a long time. Now, well, if you proceed with a buyout of 2 billion, won't you have a capital increase? That is another discussion. We will be together because shareholders decide on capital increase. So, for the time being, there is no need for capital increase. Well, the seat of the company, a very good question. Well, the seat of the company will remain in Greece. Quite clear. Not only it remains in Greece, but the share will continue to be negotiated here and in London in euros. Forget pounds. Well, the taxation, it depends on the seat of the shareholder. Since you are a Greek shareholder, you will be taxed according to the Greek taxation law. Well, all these are questions to the point, quite useful. You asked me about Metka. Metka, to our joy, and my personal joy, and my brother's John, who made it big, experiences a second youth, I put it this way, in the hands of Mr. Benroubis and Mr. Chrysafis. Well, in the past, Metka was not a priority, but now it is of exclusive priority, construction. So there is a second youth for the company. It is quite effective. It gives us exceptional results, and we foresee that these results will continue. And the case of listing Metka with the Athens Stock Exchange is a reality. It is something we do contemplate on, and will be back with answers. Now I cannot give you any other answer. Now we focus on LSE, and if everything goes well with LSE, then we will think what we will do with Metka. And what about tanks and the defense? Well, the defense, to protect the shareholders, as we said, we need to be well armed. We have announced in London our intention to create a defense hub of 5 factories already existing or to be built that will operate in 5 different defense programs. Europe and our country this very moment are in consultation on how we will have the European defense structure, how much money will be invested, what kind of cooperations we will have among companies of different member states. We expect these to unfold in the months to come. On Thursday, the Prime Minister will visit us in Volos. He will be visiting the existing venues, the production, and of course see the new venues and plants that are under construction or ready. His visit is perceived as an intention of the government that this time it truly means that it will support the defense industry. Nuclear energy in Greece. I don't know where you live or where your cottage is, but if you wanted to build a PV close to your house and you had 100 villages around you, after you for the PV, imagine wanting to build a nuclear plant. It's a joke in Greece, because no one wants to have a PV close to an urban area, or you cannot have a wind park in areas where some birds are protected. So imagine with the perception in Greece, we are a seismic area in Europe. I think that it's impossible to have a nuclear factory. And the last question had to do with the recycling of metals. I'm glad that you have asked. This is a big issue. The main objective is that industrial remains from our factories in Romania. We had a metal factory which has stopped, but it has a pile of 5 million tons of lead, copper, and silver. We had a high production of silver back in Romania, 5 million tons. So we have millions of tons from the production of aluminum, excuse me, which is the remain that includes scandium. In Romania remains we have germanium. So one step at a time, we will combine critical raw materials and rare earths. Rare earths in Greek are Spaniards, yes, and critical raw materials, well, the speaker translate that into Greek. These are not the same things. Okay, critical metals and gallium is both. Okay, we have many metals that are both. Germanium is both. Alumina Aluminum is critical raw material, but it's not rare earth. So we need to distinguish between the two. Okay, the gentleman over there. President, congratulations on everything. I admire you because you are an expert on everything. You're an expert on alloys. I wanted to ask you, please tell me. Well, on the tariffs, well, geopolitics is a big issue. I am not a football fan, but I am a fan of geopolitics. With tariffs, can you tell us something? What do you see is happening globally? I don't want to blame anyone, but I put the blame on the Commission. My friend, Mrs. von der Leyen, she is not aware of diplomacy. She needs to learn of diplomacy first and then deal with war. Something else I want to ask is energy. The problem, as I understood it, is during the evening hours. Well, the wind parks, do they operate during evening hours? And I wish you 50 years in as a president.
Well, this is the best I've had today. Well, I am optimistic, but anyway. You've touched upon a topic which is indeed very hot. And possibly for the first time, for all those years that I have been presiding in meetings, in general meetings, I can't give an answer because I do not know. This is the truth. I do not know. I don't know what shall be the mood of President Trump tomorrow, on the 9th of July. What will he do? I do not know. If I was asked, if I was told that tariffs are decided such and such and such things, so on the basis of those, tell us what will be happening in the global economy, then I would be prepared to give you an answer. But nobody knows at some point in time, at this point in time. 25% on steel and so on and so forth. I visited Pennsylvania last week, the center of steel in the US, and I was told that, well, he answered back 25. No, let's make it 50%. What can I say? Next visit, he might decide 100. I can't make any safe guess. And Europe, on the other hand, well, we wish we could buy more LNGs to balance, to bring to a balance to the situation. But do they have more gas to sell? They can load it in half a day, send it to Europe. They charge 3 times higher, and we are all happy. But I don't know whether they have got more. So apologies for this first time. I can't give you an answer. And I couldn't. make a safe guess concerning the reaction of Europe. I remind you, the resignation of the Dutch government, the election results in Poland. It's clear that we are under hard pressure here in Europe. You know the developments in Germany. There are things happening, unprecedented developments. In Romania, after 2 elections, first Sunday, second Sunday, on a third one, the Constitutional Court decided we need to cancel it because there were many messages on TikTok from Russia, so we need to cancel them. In Poland, 9 o'clock in the afternoon, they decided A has failed, but A was the loser. That A was a winner, but A was the one that failed, actually. And in Germany, out of law, a party which is on the top of the polls currently. Unimaginable developments. I don't believe in Europe. I do not believe in Euro. Even if it goes higher, Euro, I don't believe in it. Because I've been experiencing the challenges in Europe. The US might be having other problems now, currently, but still it has a very strong economy. It got in hand all the money on the globe, and we are just hoping that the American market might correct by 10% and decide something differently to propose. So, what about the debts and the deficit in the US? Well, the problem with energy is late at night, possibly because there are no photovoltaics, but we do have a natural gas, and we'll be having batteries of longer life cycle. Expensive? Well, indeed, they might be, but they'll be working. The era of batteries is very close, undoubtedly. And we'll see similar cases in the next 3, 4, 5 years, such as the one that happened with photovoltaics. And we do have a very strong know-how. We've been working for 10 years with batteries. We are in the UK #1, having installed more than 30% of the batteries existing in place in the UK. In Greece, we are still expecting the law. In 5 years' time, it might be there. So hopefully, well, we are a bit patient to see. However, once there, we are ready. We'll be ready, actually. So this is the reality. Sleep well and let's wait. Okay. Well, this is a reasonable question. How such a strong economy as the American one can be having enormous problems of deficit. And what does this mean? How it generates shocks? Well, let me take it from the very beginning. The US is an enormous Greece, to put it this way, with twice higher the deficit, the fiscal one and the current transactions deficit. They got both in an enormous, but there's something in its hands because, and we don't. They got dollars. It remains to be seen how dollar develops. And they got printers, they can print as many dollars as they want. We get them, we want them, so everything's fine. So the US has those problems. We can't consider them in the way we consider the Greek situation, because meanwhile there are larger companies, very high productivity. In the first trimester, the profits of companies are 5% higher than last year. It remains to be seen the situation with tariffs. I'm against those tariffs any one way or another. I said so in the UK. The first thing we are told in financial schools is relevant to tariffs, because this is a lose-lose situation. And there we are today. The fact that the US, is shaken, whereas we don't, well, this proves nothing. Because we only got here in Europe inflation of costs generated from due to energy. This is the reality. Next question. Good afternoon, Marius Nikas. 3 years ago, 4, I have asked you on the occasion of Warren and Charlie being awarded at that time. However, Charlie passed away last year, and Warren, that was this year his last one. So, concerning capital allocation, I asked you at that time back if you believed that the intrinsic value of the stock is lower or higher than the price it existed at that time back in the stock market. So I'll put again the question: do you believe the intrinsic price is higher than the one in the market, and if it theoretically dropped lower than the intrinsic price, would you ever consider to make a sizable tender offer for the stocks in the market at a lower price? And in such case, if the price went higher than the intrinsic value, would you consider to use it as a currency, the stock of a company, to pay for the acquisition price to target company? Well, this is connected, both the compensation plan for the CEO, because you already behave as an owner in an equitable basis as all other shareholders, So those two questions really touch upon this facet, how efficiently we allocate the capital in the company. So practically, put the capital allocator hat on for 2 seconds. You've spoken earlier as a CEO, so please do that now. Change that hat now, rather. Concerning your first question, as I mentioned earlier, I've avoided all those years to refer to the fair value of the share or make comparisons with the intrinsic value and the negotiable value. Apologies, this is a principle I've observed for 30 years and I won't break it now. I've got no opinion on the stock, or rather I do have, but I keep it for myself. I'll never tell you, never, never, that the share is cheap, go and buy, or the share is high, go and sell. Everyone and each one speaks with his, her consultants, his family, her family, and proceeds with his, her investment plans. I'm not an investment consultant. The monetization of shares that have increased in terms of value, as was the case of Metlen, speaking about acquisition, it's a tool, as you mentioned correctly, that was applied in the past, and it might apply in our case as well. But this shall depend on the course, the progress of the share, and the acquisition target, because if you wish to acquire a company 100 million value and you haven't got them to buy it, but if you want to buy a company against 2 billion euros there, you need to use the value of your share as well. So this is something that can't be excluded, but we aren't at this point in time currently. Please, the gentleman. Christos Melas. I'm a small shareholder. As of the antiquity there, we've been looking for the philosophical stone. In other words, one having two capacities. The one, the non-noble minerals, lead to be turned into gold or platinum, and of course the elixirium of life, the second one. Well, let us leave it aside. Recovery of metals, well, somehow you have discovered this philosophical stone, and far higher than what our predecessors would have considered, because you get rubbish and you can turn it into silver. So given the current results, the 600 million net profits of the company, well, according to an analysis out of the recovery of those metals, you may make profits of 200 to 120 million more. This is very important. And a second question, as the price has increased considerably, are you considering splitting the share, the stock, the share rather? The numbers you refer to are those that we have mentioned in London. So no further comment on that. Not higher, not lower. I still stick on what I've mentioned in London. Second, whether the stock could split. I did it once in my life, and I regret it. And this is stock market-wise very interesting. When a share goes higher, goes high, let us assume Mytilineos was 10 years, then 20, 30, 40 years. 20 and higher, different advices for split. That the main argument behind and in favor of the split is that the share becomes expensive for small shareholders, that you always want them because they are those that stay. But when the share goes to 30, 40, 50 or 60, well, 60 years, well, the poor guy needs such year to go to the supermarket. So split it in 3 or in 6 and make it back 10 years. So this shareholder might go and purchase 9 pieces. So this is the concept behind the split. The other one, which might make you sad, but this is the reality, is that the high price of a share of a stock allocates, attributes a different prestige and status to the company, a scarcity in terms of the share value. It is something rare. There are not many shares at such a price. And somehow it reflects the success of the company. Imagine if we had a split now and the share would drop to €2. And we would have billions of shares around. Would you like that? So I did it once in my life. I didn't remember how many years ago. And it proved to be a wrong decision. The plethora of shares, made the shareholders think that, okay, we got many, let us give away some of them. When you got few, why give away part of it? If you got 2,000 pieces, well, you may decide to sell off 10. So I'm in no split. I'm in no split of mood. Other questions? Please, the gentleman over there. Samartzidis Dimitris, we had a discussion last year concerning Gallio. So you've progressed in that sense. Gallio is a very rare, something very rare. 90% is produced in China, and Europe imports almost everything from China. It is used in lead almost everywhere. Energy control, photovoltaic, everywhere. So the question is as follows. In this plant, in Agios Nikolos, if I'm correct, where we'll be producing Gallio, will that be in a form not quite pure? So do you consider building a Gallio refinery plant and having it clean by 99%? Because this is the request of the market to produce high-quality electronics. And a second question, if that plan, whether you would consider such an idea to have it on an island, given that it requires a very clean atmosphere. And as the islands have a clear atmosphere, well, that could be a very good idea. I don't know whether you are considering something similar. And Greece would become a country producing high technology. Well, Gallio. There's something very interesting about Gallio. Its normal temperature is around 30 degrees, and when you touch it, it's very elastic. So the plant we are constructing, and we had the deputy president of the commission, Mr. Sejourne, visiting Agios Nikolaos because he couldn't believe that out of all European countries, when the Chinese blocked the frontiers, those that moved rapidly to grasp the opportunity were the Greeks. Well, it remains to be seen how the situation develops, because I'm a practical person. We intend to produce high-purity gallium for all those applications, and particularly for semiconductors and all the others that you have mentioned. Well, the Deputy Commissioner was very satisfied because he saw the production, a small production, but still. And we offered him a box with a small piece of gallium. Well, everything progresses smoothly. The entire investment, I mean, the leader investment as we call it, and it involves expansion of the mines, expansion of alumina plant, and gallium. So how I connect all those? Gallium exists in minimal quantities in bauxites. Greek bauxites. Then this becomes alumina, and the procedure from bauxite to alumina, there we have the technology which allows us to take those grams of gallium per ton, we are speaking about some grams only, and transfer them to the plant, the adjacent plant, to go through the suitable procedure. The quantities are very small, and even Europe needs 50 tons, but 1 ton has a price of $1 million. So the entire investment is on time. We got no delay so far, and I believe that it will deliver astonishing outcomes. We'll soon have the product. Ghana is a different story. It's a mountain. Nothing to do with the mountains. A tropic bauxite, but of very high quality. Semi-tropical quality, very soft. Cheaper in terms of treatment, but of very low quantity of bauxite. The Greek is very hard, but very high rate of alumina, 56–55%, whereas the bauxite of Ghana may have 40% alumina. Nickellium? What about nickellium? Give us some time and then we'll be discussing nickellium. Be patient. Be patient. Good things to happen need time. Off microphone. Today, I told you everything I could tell you. Up to that point. Thank you very much. Tiara.